Daniel Brooks never imagined that doing the right thing would destroy his life. That night, he didn't save a drunk woman. He didn't cross any line. He simply made sure his boss got home alive. By morning, the whispers began. "Did you touch me last night?" In less than 24 hours, Daniel lost his job, his reputation, and the one thing he cared about most, his daughter's sense of safety. This is the story of a single father who learned that in the modern world, kindness can be more dangerous than cruelty. The alarm clock read 6:15 a.m. when Daniel Brooks opened his eyes. No snooze button, no rolling over. Just the immediate, practiced movement of a man who had learned that mornings required precision. The autumn light filtered through the thin curtains, casting pale shadows across the walls of his bedroom walls that still bore the faint outline of where his ex-wife's bookshelf had once stood. He padded down the narrow hallway of their two-bedroom apartment, his bare feet cold against the worn hardwood, past the framed crayon drawings that Mia had made in second grade, a lopsided house with a yellow sun, and two stick figures labeled Me and Daddy. Past the leak stain on the ceiling he kept meaning to report to the landlord, though he knew from experience it would take 3 calls and 2 weeks before anyone came. The kitchen was small, barely enough room for 2 people to stand side by side, but it was theirs, and that mattered more than square footage. Daniel filled the kettle and set it on the stove, watching the blue flame catch and spread beneath the metal base. The familiar hiss and pop of heating water was oddly comforting. While it heated, he opened the refrigerator and pulled out eggs, bread, and the strawberry jam Mia insisted tasted better than all the others. Though Daniel suspected all strawberry jam tasted exactly the same, he didn't argue. If strawberry jam made mornings easier, he'd buy it every single time. Budget be damned. "Daddy?" He turned. Mia stood in the doorway, her brown hair tangled from sleep, wearing the oversized t-shirt she used as pajamas, a faded blue thing that had once belonged to him, now claimed by her with the absolute authority only an 8-year-old could muster. She was small for her age, with eyes that seemed too serious sometimes, like she was cataloging everything, storing it away for future reference. "Morning, sweetheart. Eggs or cereal?" "Eggs." "Scrambled." She climbed onto the chair at the kitchen table, pulling her knees up to her chest in that way she did when she was thinking about something. "Can I have juice too? Orange or apple?" "Orange. The kind with pulp." Daniel smiled despite himself. 3 months ago, she'd insisted she hated pulp. Last week, she'd announced that orange juice without pulp was basically just sugar water. He had no idea where she'd learned that phrase, but he wasn't about to argue with an 8-year-old's evolving culinary philosophy. He cracked 3 eggs into a bowl and whisked them with a fork, watching the yolks break and swirl into the whites. The routine was automatic now, worn smooth by repetition. 3 years since the divorce, 3 years of figuring out how to be both parents at once, to be the one who made breakfast and checked homework and remembered field trip permission slips, and still somehow showed up to work looking like a functioning adult. "Is today your late day?" Mia asked. "Nope." "Home by 6, just like always. Promise?" Daniel looked at her. That question had started appearing about 6 months ago, after he'd been stuck in traffic and arrived home 40 minutes late. She'd been sitting on the front steps of their building, waiting with Mrs. Chen from 3B, who'd agreed to keep an eye out. "I promise," he said. "I'll be there when you get off the bus." He poured the eggs into the pan and watched them cloud and solidify. Mia had begun to hum something, a tune from a show he didn't recognize but had heard 100 times. He let her hum. These mornings were the still point in his turning world. At 7:30, they walked to the bus stop together. Daniel carried her backpack, even though she insisted she was big enough to carry it herself. The October air had a bite to it, the kind that promised winter wasn't far off, and he made a mental note to dig out her winter coat soon. Maybe this weekend, maybe he'd finally get around to fixing that loose button too. The bus stop was at the corner of Maple and 3rd, beneath a streetlight that had been broken for 2 months. 4 other kids waited there, parents standing nearby in various states of morning alertness. Daniel recognized most of them by sight, nodded hellos, occasional small talk about weather or school events, the kind of shallow community that forms when your lives intersect for exactly 8 minutes each weekday morning. "Love you, kiddo," he said when the yellow bus rounded the corner, its brakes squealing slightly as it slowed. "Love you too, Daddy." She hoisted her backpack. He'd let her carry it the last 20 feet. A compromise they'd silently negotiated, and joined the line of kids boarding. She climbed the steps, her small frame briefly silhouetted against the bright interior of the bus. She turned once to wave, found him in the cluster of parents, and smiled. Then she disappeared into the rows of seats, swallowed by the ordinary chaos of children heading to school. Daniel watched the bus pull away, its red lights blinking as it merged back into traffic. Then he checked his watch. If he walked fast, he'd make the 8:05 train. If he jogged, he might even have time to grab a coffee at the station kiosk, though the coffee there tasted like it had been brewed sometime during the previous administration. Northway Consulting occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in the financial district, the kind of building that looked impressive in photographs but felt cold and impersonal when you actually worked there. Daniel had worked there for 4 years as a data analyst, not glamorous, not well paid, but stable. Stability mattered more than ambition now. Stability meant Mia's school fees got paid on time. It meant groceries without checking his account balance first. It meant he could sleep at night without wondering if one unexpected car repair would send everything crashing down. His desk was in an open floor plan with 17 other analysts, a space designed by someone who'd read too many articles about collaboration and not enough about the actual human need for privacy. He said good morning to Janet, who was already 3 cups of coffee deep, and looked it, nodded at Marcus, who was perpetually 15 minutes late and perpetually unconcerned about it, and logged into his computer. By 9 a.m., he was deep in spreadsheets, tracking client engagement metrics that would be compiled into a report no one would read carefully. Numbers that would be formatted into graphs, presented in a meeting, and then filed away in some digital folder that would never be opened again. But it was work. It was steady. It was what paid for strawberry jam and oversized t-shirts and the small apartment with the leak stain he couldn't quite afford to leave. This was his life. Predictable, quiet, safe. He had no idea it would all be gone by tomorrow. The email arrived at 4:47 p.m., just as Daniel was beginning to think about wrapping up for the day. Subject: Team Celebration. Tonight at the Anchor Room. The Kensington deal is done. Mandatory attendance for all team leads and senior analysts. Drinks on the company. 7 p.m. sharp. Daniel stared at the word mandatory and felt his stomach tighten. Mandatory meant he couldn't politely decline. Mandatory meant he had to find childcare on 3 hours' notice. Mandatory meant Mrs. Chen, his neighbor, who was probably already making dinner plans. He texted her anyway, his fingers hovering over the keyboard before he typed, "Any chance you could stay with Mia until 9 tonight?" "Company thing." "We'll pay double," she replied within minutes. "No problem, sweetheart. Go have fun." Fun. Right. The Anchor Room was the kind of place where partners took clients to impress them, exposed brick walls that probably cost more to install than actual brick. Leather booths worn just enough to look distinguished rather than shabby, cocktails that cost $23 and came with elaborate garnishes that no one ate. Daniel arrived at 7 wearing his department store suit. The navy one that Janet had once diplomatically suggested worked well for his coloring, which he'd correctly interpreted as "it's fine, but nothing special." He immediately felt out of place. The private room in the back was already loud, the kind of loud that comes from people who don't have to be at work tomorrow morning. 30 people, maybe more, clustered around high-top tables. Someone had ordered appetizers that no one was eating, small plates of things Daniel couldn't identify, arranged artfully and abandoned. The bar was crowded 3 deep, and the bartender was working with the efficient desperation of someone who'd severely underestimated the evening. Victoria Hale stood near the window, holding court with three executives Daniel recognized but had never spoken to. She was the director of Client Strategy 42, impeccable in a charcoal suit, with the kind of presence that made people straighten their posture when she walked past. Daniel had reported to her indirectly for 2 years. He'd spoken to her maybe 5 times, always brief, always professional. She wasn't warm. She didn't do small talk, but she was brilliant. By 8:30, the noise level had doubled. Someone made a toast, then another. Daniel nursed a ginger ale and checked his watch. By 9:15, the crowd had thinned. The executives had left. The senior analysts were getting sloppy, and Victoria Hale was leaning against the bar, her eyes glassy, her carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. Daniel watched from across the room as her assistant Claire, he thought her name, was tried to convince her to call a car. "I'm fine," Victoria said, too loudly. "Perfectly fine." She wasn't fine. Claire looked around, clearly hoping someone else would step in. No one did. The remaining partners had already slipped out. Marcus and Janet were arguing about sports. The bartender was wiping down glasses and pretending not to notice. Daniel hesitated. This wasn't his problem. He barely knew her. But then Victoria tried to stand and nearly fell. He crossed the room. "Miss Hale, let me call you a car." She blinked at him, trying to focus. "Who are you?" "Daniel Brooks." "Data team." "Data," she repeated, as if the word meant nothing. "I don't need a car. I need." She trailed off, swaying. Claire shot Daniel a grateful look. "Her apartment's 15 minutes away." "Do you have a car?" "I do. Could you? I'm sorry, I have to get home." "My sister's in the hospital." "It's fine," Daniel said. "I'll take her." He regretted it immediately. Daniel's 12-year-old sedan smelled like fast food and children's books. Victoria collapsed into the passenger seat, her head lolling against the window. "Address?" Daniel asked. She mumbled something. He checked her phone locked. He checked her purse, found a wallet, found a driver's license. The address was in Riverside Towers, one of the newer luxury buildings overlooking the water. The drive took 18 minutes. Victoria didn't speak. Twice, Daniel thought she might be sick, but she just breathed heavily and stared at nothing. The lobby of Riverside Towers was all marble and recessed lighting. A security guard looked up from his desk as Daniel half-carried Victoria through the entrance. "Miss Hale all right?" the guard asked. "Company party," Daniel said. "Which floor?" 14. "I can help. I've got her." The elevator ride felt interminable. Victoria's weight sagged against him. She smelled like expensive perfume and whiskey. When the doors opened, he guided her down the hallway to 14C. Her keys were in her purse. It took 3 tries to get the door open. The apartment was exactly what he'd expected. Minimalist furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, art that probably cost more than his car. He led her to the couch and eased her down. She immediately curled onto her side. Daniel stood there, uncertain. Should he take off her shoes? Find a blanket? Wake her up to make sure she was okay? He compromised. He slipped off her heels and set them beside the couch. He found a glass in the kitchen, filled it with water, and placed it on the coffee table beside her. He grabbed a throw blanket from the back of an armchair and draped it over her. Then he pulled out his phone and typed a quick message. "Made sure you got home safe." "Water on the table. Door is locked. Daniel Brooks." He sent it to the work number he had for her. On his way out, he made sure the door locked behind him. The security guard in the lobby looked up again. "She settled?" the guard asked. "Yeah." On the couch. Left her some water. Good man. Daniel walked to his car, drove home, paid Mrs. Chen $40 he couldn't really spare, and checked on Mia. She was asleep, her arm wrapped around a stuffed elephant. He collapsed into bed at 11:30. He had done the right thing. He was certain of it. Daniel's phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. He was at his desk, halfway through his second coffee, when the message appeared. Victoria Hale. Did you touch me last night? He stared at the screen. Read it again. His hands went cold. He started typing a response, deleted it, started again. Daniel Brooks. I drove you home from the anchor room. You were on the couch when I left. I didn't touch you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Victoria Hale. We need to talk. My office. 10 a.m. Daniel's heart hammered. Around him, the office continued its normal rhythm, keyboard clicks, low conversations, the hum of the HVAC system. No one looked at him. No one knew. He glanced at the clock. 1 hour and 13 minutes. At 9:30, his phone rang. Internal number, HR. Daniel Brooks, this is Lydia Marsh from Human Resources. We need you to come to conference room B immediately. I have a meeting with Miss Hale at 10. This is more urgent. Please come now. The line went dead. Daniel stood. His legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. He walked past Janet's desk, past Marcus, past the row of analysts who didn't look up from their screens. Conference room B was on the 3rd floor. Small, windowless. When he opened the door, 3 people were waiting. Lydia Marsh, a man he didn't recognize in an expensive suit, and Victoria Hale, sitting perfectly still, her face unreadable. Mr. Brooks, please sit, Lydia said. He sat. I'm Robert Keene, General Counsel for Northway Consulting, the man in the suit said. We've received a complaint regarding your conduct at last night's company event. Daniel's mouth went dry. What complaint? Lydia glanced at Victoria, then back at him. Miss Hale has indicated that she has questions about what occurred after the party ended. I drove her home, Daniel said. She was intoxicated. I made sure she got inside safely. Did you enter her apartment? Keene asked. Yes. To make sure she got to the couch. Did you touch her? I helped her walk. She couldn't stand on her own. Did you touch her in any inappropriate manner? No. Absolutely not. Silence. Victoria spoke for the first time, her voice quiet. I don't remember last night. I woke up on my couch. My shoes were off. I don't remember you taking them off. I didn't want you to be uncomfortable. You were alone with me in my apartment. To help you, Keene leaned forward. Mr. Brooks, you understand this is a sensitive situation. We take all complaints seriously. Until we complete our investigation, you're being placed on paid administrative leave. Investigation? I didn't do anything wrong. That's what the investigation will determine, Lydia said. We'll need you to surrender your access badge and leave the premises immediately. Daniel looked at Victoria. She met his eyes for half a second, then looked away. You know, I didn't do anything, he said. She didn't respond. Miss Hale? Lydia prompted. I know what the optics are, Victoria said quietly. And I know what's required. Daniel Brooks became a ghost in his own life within 6 hours. By noon, his work email was deactivated. He'd tried to log in to finish a project he'd been working on, some client analysis that was due Friday, and been met with an error message. Access denied. Please contact IT. By 2 p.m., someone from IT had called to arrange pickup of his laptop. A kid who sounded about 22, awkward and apologetic, who said he'd be by the apartment tomorrow morning. Just following protocol, the kid had said, as if protocol explained everything. By 5 p.m., the first text message arrived from a colleague. Marcus. Dude, what happened? He didn't respond. What could he say? I helped someone and now I'm being investigated for assault? I did the right thing and it destroyed me? There were no words that wouldn't sound either pathetic or defensive, so he said nothing. The next morning, he didn't get dressed for work. He sat at the kitchen table while Mia ate cereal, her backpack already loaded for school, and tried to figure out what his life looked like now. The apartment felt different in the daytime, exposed somehow, like a stage set waiting for actors who would never arrive. You're not going to work? She asked, her spoon pausing halfway to her mouth. Not today, sweetheart. Are you sick? Just taking some time off. She studied him with those 2 serious eyes, the ones that saw more than he wanted them to. "Okay," she said finally, and went back to her cereal. But he could tell she didn't believe him. After the bus came, Daniel sat alone in the silent apartment. His phone buzzed intermittently. Messages from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored them all. On day 3, Lydia Marsh called. "Mr. Brooks, we need to schedule a follow-up interview." "What else is there to say?" "The investigation is ongoing. We've reviewed security footage from Miss Hale's building. We've spoken with the guard on duty. We've examined the timeline, and we need to speak with you again. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. He arrived early. The same conference room. The same 3 people. Keene opened a folder. "We've confirmed your account of the evening. Security footage shows you entering the building at 10:03 p.m. and exiting at 10:17 p.m. 14 minutes. The guard confirms you appeared to be assisting Miss Hale and that you spoke briefly on your way out." Relief flooded through Daniel. "So we're done?" "Not exactly," Lydia said. "While we found no evidence of misconduct, we have to consider the broader situation." "What situation?" Keene folded his hands. "Perception, Mr. Brooks. Optics. Company culture. I don't understand. You were alone with a female superior in her home while she was incapacitated. Even though your actions appear to have been well-intentioned, the situation creates complications." "Complications," Daniel repeated flatly. "Several employees have expressed concern," Lydia added, "about whether the company takes these situations seriously. About what message we're sending." "What message?" "I helped someone who needed help." "We appreciate that," Keene said. "But we have to think about precedent, about liability, about what happens if we restore you to your position and questions remain." Daniel felt the room tilt. "Questions from who?" "From anyone," Lydia said gently. "This is about protecting everyone involved." "Including me?" No one answered. Keene slid a document across the table. "We're prepared to offer you a severance package. 3-month salary. Neutral reference. You resign effective immediately, and we all move forward. And if I don't sign, then the investigation remains open, pending indefinitely. Which means you remain on unpaid leave. Which means, eventually, we can terminate for cause based on violation of conduct policies." Daniel stared at the paper. 3 months. He had maybe 2 weeks' worth of savings. "I need time to think." "You have until Monday," Keene said. "Mia's teacher called on Thursday." "Mr. Brooks, I wanted to give you a heads up. Some of the other students have been asking Mia questions." Daniel's chest tightened. "What kind of questions?" "About why you're not at work. Whether you did something bad. I've spoken to the children involved, but I thought you should know. That evening, Mia was quieter than usual. She pushed her dinner around her plate and didn't ask to watch television afterward." "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Daniel asked. "Nothing." She looked up. "Caitlin said her mom said you got in trouble. She said you might go to jail." Daniel felt something break inside his chest. "I'm not going to jail. I didn't do anything wrong." "Then why aren't you at work?" "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements. It's complicated." "Did you hurt somebody?" "No, never." "Then why does everyone think you did?" He had no answer for her. That night, after she fell asleep, Daniel sat in his car in the parking lot of their building and cried. Not the quiet tears he'd shed after the divorce, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place he'd kept locked for years. He had done the right thing. He was certain of it. So why did it feel like punishment? Victoria Hale requested the security footage herself. She sat in her apartment on Saturday morning, laptop open, watching grainy black and white video. The timestamp read 10:03 p.m. The elevator doors opened. She saw herself barely standing, leaning heavily on a man who held her carefully, awkwardly, like she might shatter. Daniel Brooks. The hallway footage showed him supporting her to her door, fumbling with keys, getting the door open. They disappeared inside. She switched to the next file. The hallway again. 10:17 p.m. Daniel emerged alone, pulled the door closed, tested the handle to make sure it locked. He walked to the elevator. Waited. The doors opened. He stepped inside. 14 minutes. Victoria closed the laptop. She remembered nothing from that night. Nothing after the 5th drink, maybe the 6th. She'd woken on her couch, disoriented, her mouth dry, her head pounding. Her shoes had been placed neatly on the floor. A glass of water sat on the coffee table, and a message on her phone from a number she'd had to look up in the company directory. Made sure you got home safe. Water on the table. Door is locked. Daniel Brooks. She'd panicked. The gaps in her memory felt dangerous. She'd called HR before she'd fully thought it through. Had said she had concerns about what happened. Had used words like uncomfortable and unclear. By the time she'd meant to clarify to say she wasn't making an accusation, just asking questions, the machine had already started moving. Now, Daniel Brooks was gone. His colleagues whispered. His daughter was being harassed at school, and Victoria knew, with absolute certainty, that he had done nothing wrong. She had destroyed a man for being kind to her. The realization sat in her stomach like lead. Sunday night, she drafted an email to HR. Deleted it. Started again. Deleted it again. Monday morning, she walked into Lydia Marsh's office without an appointment. We need to talk about Daniel Brooks. Conference Room B. Tuesday afternoon. No warning. Daniel received a call at 1 p.m. We need you here in an hour. He drove to Northway in a daze, parked in visitor parking, rode the elevator to the 3rd floor. When he opened the door, he found the same 3 people as before, and Victoria Hale standing by the window. Mr. Brooks, please sit, Lydia said. He remained standing. Why am I here? Keene gestured to a chair. Please. Daniel sat. His hands were shaking. Victoria turned from the window. She looked tired, smaller somehow than he remembered. I asked for this meeting, she said, because I need to correct the record. Daniel's heart stopped. I reviewed all available evidence, Victoria continued. Security footage, guard testimony, timeline analysis, and I need to state, clearly and unambiguously, that Daniel Brooks acted appropriately and professionally on the night in question. The room was silent. I was intoxicated, Victoria said. I needed help. He provided it. Nothing more, nothing less. Any implications to the contrary were the result of my own confusion and poor judgment. Lydia and Keene exchanged glances. Miss Hale. Keene began. I understand perfectly, Victoria said. I made a mistake. I let my own discomfort and embarrassment drive a process that should never have begun. Daniel Brooks did nothing wrong, and he should never have been placed on leave. She looked directly at Daniel. I'm sorry. Daniel couldn't speak. The words he'd been rehearsing for days, angry words, hurt words, evaporated. Well, Keene said after a long pause, this does change things. It changes everything, Victoria said. I want it in writing that all allegations are withdrawn, that his record is cleared, that he's reinstated immediately with back pay. Miss Hale, we need to discuss. No, Victoria said. We don't. I've already spoken to Richard Hollings, the CEO. Lydia looked at Daniel. Mr. Brooks, we apologize for any distress this has caused. Your position will be restored. And, no, Daniel said. Everyone turned. No? Lydia repeated. Daniel stood. I don't want the job back. Daniel, Victoria started. You're right, he said. I did nothing wrong. But you all treated me like I did. You suspended me. You investigated me. You let people think. His voice cracked. My daughter asked me if I was going to jail. Silence. I'm glad the record is clear, Daniel continued. But I can't work somewhere that did this to me. I can't walk past people who believed I was capable of. He stopped. I'm done. He turned to leave. Mr. Brooks, Keene said, you're entitled to the severance package we discussed, and additional compensation for, I'll take the severance, Daniel said. But I'm not signing any NDAs. If anyone asks me what happened, I'm going to tell them." He walked out without looking back. Victoria found him in the parking garage. "Daniel, wait." He turned. She stood 10 feet away, her perfect posture slightly diminished. "I know sorry isn't enough," she said. "You're right. It's not. For what it's worth, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was confused. Scared. I made assumptions." "You made a phone call," Daniel said. "That's all it took. One phone call, and my life fell apart." "I know. Do you? Do you know what it's like to watch your kid get bullied because people think you're a predator? Do you know what it's like to lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you'll ever work again?" Victoria's eyes were wet. "No, I don't. I did the right thing," Daniel said. "I helped you. And you repaid me by assuming the worst." "I did." She was quiet for a long time, because it felt safer to assume the worst than to trust that someone might just be kind. Daniel felt the anger drain out of him, not replaced by forgiveness, just by exhaustion. "I hope you figure that out," he said, "because that's a terrible way to live." He got in his car and drove away. He never saw her again. 3 months later, Daniel started a new job. The position was at a smaller firm, 20 minutes farther from home. The pay was 15% less than Northway. The office was cramped and the coffee was terrible. But when he walked through the door each morning, no one whispered. The severance from Northway covered the gap. Barely. Daniel learned to live with less, fewer takeout dinners, no new clothes. The same shoes resoled twice. It didn't matter. They had enough. On a Wednesday in February, Daniel picked Mia up from school. The winter had been mild, unseasonably warm, and today the sun felt almost spring-like through the windshield. She climbed into the car, dropped her backpack on the floor with her usual theatrical exhaustion, and grinned at him. "We're doing a project on heroes," she said. "Mrs. Patterson says we each pick someone we admire and write about why they're heroic. I picked you." Daniel's throat tightened. He adjusted the rearview mirror to buy himself a moment. "I'm not a hero, sweetheart. You are to me." She said it simply, matter-of-factly, the way she might announce that the sky was blue or that broccoli tasted terrible. He pulled away from the curb, merged into traffic, and for the first time in months, felt something close to peace. Something that felt like the world might be okay after all. He had lost his job, his reputation, his sense that the world was fair and just. But when Mia reached over and held his hand, he realized he still had the only thing that mattered. She trusted him completely and without reservation. And that, Daniel thought, was a kind of justice too.